Hi, everybody, and thanks for joining us today in our Legal Research and Writing webinar. The webinar is hosted by the Toronto School of Management, and it's in partnership with CanadianLawTutor.com and the director of CanadianLawTutor.com, the one and only Navdeep Virk, or better known online and probably to most of the people coming to have a listen to the webinar as Gul Virk. So thank you, Gul, for joining us today.
Thank you very much, Anton, Toronto School of Management, for having me here.
Yeah, no problem. So just a bit of administrative details to get out of the way first. My name is Anton Haswell, and I'm the Director of Legal Studies at the Toronto School of Management. The Toronto School of Management's building up its NCA portfolio of prep courses and study guides, and looking to host more of these kinds of webinars more regularly moving forward to give insights and information for candidates who are internationally trained looking to practice law in Canada. Today we thought with Gul Virk as a specialist in the area of prep and very familiar with working with candidates for about a decade now, we thought it would be useful for us to look into the new requirement that the National Committee on Accreditation has started to mandate, and that is its legal research and writing component. The presentation will get into what is the NCA, so we'll sort of start from the very beginning in terms of what people can expect in the process in order to get licensed in Canada. And we'll delve a lot more specifically into this new component. Traditionally, the NCA had 5 mandatory courses or modules or exams that individuals needed to complete at a minimum, and that's been upped now. So we'll get into the whys, the where, and the how on how to best complete this course. So if you have questions, by all means, there's a Q&A component to this webinar. Please do ask at any time. I can ask while Gul is presenting, but I can also ask at the end. Also, a recording of this presentation in full in its entirety will be emailed to you after the event. So if you have to leave early or if you've missed a little bit of the beginning, not to worry. It'll be emailed to you in full, and you'll be able to go over it as well. We'll also give out our personal details in terms of how you can connect with us after the presentation, emails and phone numbers and things like that. So not to worry there. I suppose without further ado, Gul, you can begin by perhaps introducing yourself. I know I did a pretty quick job of that, but I know you've been in this space for quite some time, teaching hundreds of candidates from all over on how to successfully complete their NCA accreditation requirements and also the Ontario Bar accreditation requirements. So take it away.
Thank you so much, Anton. Welcome to this platform, and it's so exciting to meet everyone who wants to know about this course. Hi, I'm Gul Virk. I'm a lawyer from Ontario, and I developed a program called Canadian Law Tutor Program, which is meant to bridge the gap between international legal education and Canadian legal education. So we are working on the national platform with almost all the law societies of Canada, and we not only take care of your accreditation program, we hold your hand after that as well in the licensing process, whether it's Ontario Bar exams, BC Bar exams, or you get to know something about prep, CPLED, and all those components to get licensed in Alberta, Manitoba, or Nova Scotia. So this is our privilege to be able to connect with everybody over here to talk about this NCA's new course. As we all know, that NCA is a process required for international law graduate to get accredited and get your degree of law, get qualified, become an equal to JD in Canada. So this is your first step. Now in this new first step, they have added a new program as well. So let's go about the NCA qualification process. So first of all, we apply to NCA, get our law degrees assessed, and then we start the payment process, documentation process. They do the assessment. They usually give between 5 to 9 exams to students to write. It can be 12, 10, depending upon the law education and the criteria of NCAs, and they have absolute discretion to decide that component. So we are not going to go into that detail. But once you complete that process, you get certificate of qualification, which is your first step to start your Canadian legal journey to qualify for licensing exams. So then the provincial, this is a national platform, and then you step into your individual licensing process based on your province. So this is what the criteria right now for any international law graduate looks, or internationally trained lawyer looks like to practice law in Canada. But now with the certificate of qualification and assessment process, there are new things added as per the NCA amendment of policy to June 2021, where they said we would require the program. There is a new assessment requirement, which is you will be required to get Canadian legal research and legal writing as part of your mandatory courses. So what does this mandatory course means, and what we are doing in today's webinar? So our goal today is to familiarize you with the research, writing skills that you will need for your future NCA exam in 2022. We've been receiving many emails, messages over social media. People were getting a little apprehensive about the process, and they were really worried about what Canadian legal research looks like and what Canadian legal writing looks like. So over here today and via this platform, we are talking about all the components which are basically we need to understand in the Canadian legal writing and Canadian legal research process. We are lawyers, we are law students. We have always been doing a little bit of research, a little bit of writing, starting from your law school application when you write for the first time. That is your beginning to start your legal writing. And when we start working for our assignments and everything, that's when we are doing the research. So this is not something very, very new for the law students. They have been always doing that. But now we are doing it in a more structured way and more, the audience, the requirement, and the Canadian standard is a little bit different from our home jurisdiction. So we would need to familiarize ourselves to be successful as a lawyer. So what is legal writing for us? As they say, the language of law must not be foreign to the ears of those who are to obey it. So in Canada, interestingly, there is so much emphasis. If you pick up any legislation, for example, you go to criminal code, you won't find the language of the law to be very complicated. So in Canada, there is emphasis on the plain language. As a lawyer, we know that, this is the Latin maxim, right? So this is what, interestingly, we write on our papers, we write on our notebooks or things like that. But over here, we have a very interesting way to have a plain language. So Canada has been, from last 20 years, working diligently to remove the understanding barrier between law and a person. So legal writing, starting from the top of the legislation, it has been to simplify the component and make it very, very understandable. So the same thing applies as we go along in this presentation a little bit forward. In a few minutes, we would talk about what legal writing means for us over here and what is the plain language, what do we mean by understanding the component of the legal writing. So learning from this, another component we have is the legal research. As we know, we always have those wonderful aha moments in our digital libraries, physical libraries, when we read a component of law and get so excited about that component. So Honorable Justice Marshall said, legal cases are won in the library, not in the courtroom. So this is a very important skill for a lawyer. We cannot be wasting too much time to narrow down the issues, to narrow down the component of law and apply the law. So the quality legal research is a time saver for the lawyers. So when you know there are resources. So NCA wants you to have these two crucial skills as you practice and step into your legal journey in Canada so that you can be successful. Even though licensing process has their own component, study material, so you don't have to do all those presentations much on your own. You are given a quite structured and systematic way of studying. But when we enter the field of law, we would not have all those skills probably on our hand, refreshed in our situation, in our control to be successful and navigate the legal process. So legal writing, legal research skills are crucial. They are wonderful resource to be a successful practicing lawyer in Canada. Then what is legal writing? Why it is different than academic writing? In academic writing, we are focusing on so much to convey our knowledge, convey the crucial things we have learned in the most sophisticated or wonderful vocabulary and things. But legal writing in Canada the emphasis has been on the plain language. I've been working with students who are doing the CPLAT courses. They want to be on the correct side. They want to do the CPLAT courses, but they have no clue what is expected from an articling student, what it means, because you don't have as an internationally trained lawyers, we may not have the exposure of having an articling mentor who is providing us the training required in the process. So CPLAT, before joining the CPLAT prep program offered by Alberta, Manitoba, and Nova Scotia, so students do join Canadian Law Tutor for pre-prep program, where we familiarize themselves with the basic legal writing skills, legal research skills, so that when they are in the program, they can navigate in the more systematic and comfortable way. So our job over here is to make your job more comfortable. It's not easy, but we would try to make it as easy as possible. So legal writing is different than academic writing. It's not about conveying the knowledge as well. In legal writing, we have different audiences. I'm a lawyer. I can be sending you a simple email that this is what the next court date looks like. It can be in the law firm where I'm sending my colleague an email by saying, this is what my position on this issue is. This is what I believe about the professional responsibility issue involved in the process. So legal writing is anything when a lawyer is conveying a legal issue. So the content of legal writing keeps changing with your audience. Your audience can be your client, it can be your court, it can be your colleague, it can be your boss. So legal writing keeps changing with the audience. It is not an academic writing. So if I'm writing my NCA exam, I will try my best to put all the information into the level of the academic writing. So the new course, as per my opinion, as I have experience working with law school students from Canada, articling students and teaching them legal research and legal writing skills, I've learned that this is something different. So NCA exam itself is your example of your academic writing. You're writing a legal memo there. You are writing in an IRAC form, but still your emphasis is on the quality words, quality vocabulary, so that you can have the academic standard involved. But as legal writing, you're conveying the words, conveying the message in a more simplified way. As in Canada, we have a very strong emphasis on the plain language. We are slowly going away from the complicated Latin. I know as lawyers, we are always, intrigued by all those elements when we see a quote here and there on Instagram or on social media, and I try to save those things. But these are for our emotional, personal level. But when we are going into the exam process, the legal writing is an emphasis on the plain language. Your ability to apply the legal concept. For example, my client send me an email like, hey, Gol, I believe I should be suing my plumber because he didn't do the good job. So then we will have to explain him what is the law, what are the legal options, what are the consequences of each legal options. So that is where the legal writing is. It can be my opinion letter. So in the simplest way, it can be my opinion letter. It can be an advocacy letter sent to the other person. So legal writing is combination of all those writing skills involved in the day-to-day life of a lawyer. It can be your skill coming from a skill required to write opinion, advocacy, memo, a judgment, or even a legal brief submitted to the court. But the emphasis, once again, would be on the plain language. So you can be rest assured that you would not be required, as per my understanding and my opinion and my experience working in this field, I believe that in Canadian courses would not require you to rephrase anything in Latin, or legal writing does not mean we have to memorize all those wonderful Latin maxims which we probably memorized during our law school entrance program. So we have learned those, we know those, they are in us, but they are going to stay. They're a wonderful part of our memory. They are not part of the legal writing skill required for our program. In Canadian legal system, the emphasis, once again, I believe I'm reiterating, but I want to put emphasis on this fact that it is on legal writing is the plain language, and it varies with your audience. It is a combination of your legal knowledge on the facts and apply in a simplest way so that the other person can do this. CPLAT has their own, as NCA is offering it through NCA CPLAT, and CPLAT has their own program where they teach in their own way. But anybody who wants to understand it, we offer these kind of programs from time to time on social media. There is an advertisement. You can always see how when your time suits, and you can join and you can work to learn these programs. Even if you're not required, you're one of those NCA students who is not required to write this course, the pre-program for prep or for articling students involving legal writing and legal research is an important skill to learn. Why? Because this is what gives you a hands-on knowledge and skill to navigate through the legal process. Because once you are getting the license and you're sitting in your law office and you are required to write a letter to another lawyer or to client or to the court, a document, you would not be worried about the content and looking for precedents, because you know how to work on your own. So this is a very important course and content to be learned by every legal student who wants to practice law in Canada, whether you're required by NCA or you're not required by NCA. So I would highly recommend everybody to explore this area. And it's wonderful that NCA has been able to highlight this and give hands-on tool, realizing that international law students do need this program. So this is what my introduction about legal writing and legal research. We will go a little bit more into the legal research now. Anybody has any questions so far? If I'm going too fast, I can slow down and I can go back to any component if you want me to break it down into more details.
Yeah, so far I don't see any questions, but again, I guess I can reiterate to the attendees, if you do have questions, there should be a question and answer box on your screen where you can just quickly jot down anything that you have, and we'll also go over some questions we've come up with at the end of this presentation as well.
All right, thank you very much. So now let's talk about the legal research. What is legal research? Legal research is understanding the law on the point in the simplest way. We are trying to have the law on a certain point. Remember my example when my plumber didn't perform well. So my client's plumber didn't perform well, so he wanted to sue him. So I need to find the contractual liability. I would need to look at the bylaws, or any other rule which makes the plumber accountable. So that's what my legal research in the simplest way is. So whenever you are referring to law, case law, commentary, bylaws, they are all legal components of legal research. So what kind of information do you need? Do we always need a statute? Answer is no. Sometimes things are governed by bylaws. Things are governed by case laws. Things are governed by regulation. If I'm working in a university and I'm an employee of the university, then the rules of the regulation of the university would be binding on me. If you have to check my accountability, if I don't do my job well, and you need to find that, then your legal research would start from the source of the law, which is regulating me, and it can be simply university regulation. So the next question is, how do we do this legal research in Canada? Do we always need to go through paid resources, or there is some way where we can learn and the process can be, cost effective? So our purpose today is to provide you all the information required so that you can start working on your own in these courses as well. So the first thing, which is my favorite resource for everything in my life, has been from last 12 years, is Supreme Court of Canada. You go to Supreme Court of Canada, look at the judgments. There are certain which are listed as the constitutional issues, specific issues, and when you go to the judgment, this is absolutely free resource provided, and you can start reading from that. That gives you overall picture of each and every element involved in the process. So my favorite one is Supreme Court of Canada, SEC.ca, and it's available free of charge, and you can navigate through that about the legal research. And many libraries in Canada, they also have their free resource available for people who are using the process of, if you're a citizen, or you're a resident, you're a PR, or you're a student over here, and you are a member of the library, I always highly encourage students to join the library, like Brampton Library, Edmonton Library. If you go to their specific area, and you will see the digital content, digital learning. So that is where you will find many resources for the legal research as well. So those are available for free of charge. My favorite ones are Supreme Court of Canada, and as well as your local library. And Westnext Law and Lexis Advance, these are paid resources, but they are worth when you are actually working. As an NCA student, you do get one of these digital resources. I don't remember from top of my head, but once you sign up for the NCA exam, when you sign up for the NCA, you're registered for the exam, they give you a free resource for learning. So if you go into that resource, you will find Canadian precedents, you will find summary of Canadian judgments, and that is the wonderful resource to do that. And my another favorite is, if you look at Hull and Hull LLP, they write wonderful legal blogs. Their blog is my favorite one to follow, and I have been following as my student, and even after being a lawyer from 12 years, they have the quality blogs written, which means you can get everything what you need to know about a component of law. They are basically on the estate planning or family law implication on estate planning, but that should be your first resource, free resource to learn the law. Legal research. So we have another legal encyclopedia. So many students must be already aware of the fact that there is Halsbury Law, which is basically started from England, but in Canada we have our own version that is called Halsbury Laws of Canada. We have LexisNexis in Canada, and we have Canadian Encyclopedia Digest. So we as Canadian are very humble, but we are very proud of the fact that we have our own Canadian Encyclopedia Digest, which is a legal encyclopedia. And what is the difference between normal encyclopedia and legal encyclopedia? Legal encyclopedia gives us the definition, legal definition of something. For example, contract can be simply simply defined as something available to be binding on two people. But when we look at the legal definition, it would have component of an offer and acceptance and consideration in the legal definition. So the benefit of using legal encyclopedia from day one in your studies, even if you're working for constitutional law, if you're working for administrative law or criminal law for your NCA exam, the you follow the Canadian Encyclopedia Digest or Husbandry Laws of Canada. And I'm sure you must be receiving an email. I remember back then as well, it was there when I did my NCAs in 2010. Yes. And I received an email in December 2009 with my exam registration, where there was an information about how to log in on one of these resources, and they're still doing it. So that is your first free resource, which you should follow and navigate, explore it, and see how much you can get out of it. So these are other list of available for free journals. So what is the benefit of reading? Many students have always messaging me that there is something called secondary source, primary source when we go into the legal research. So what is the meaning of what it means for us as a lawyer to go through this process? So as a lawyer, we are looking for reliable resources so that we can quote in the court as well. We can put a quotation on that, and we can argue that this is what it means in the legal document. For that, we need reliable resources where we can get scholarly articles. So these are the scholarly articles available to be read. These are your source for your research as well as your legal writing skills. So we see how things are defined in these on these platforms, how things are defined on these elements, so that we can use this information. Now let's bind all this information to our NCA course. So NCA course, which is new one saying legal research and legal writing, in my opinion, that would be summary or training for a lawyer to learn these skills. Learning how to write plain language documents in Canada, how to do the research for different perspectives, how to do a legal research when you are required to submit a legal brief in the court, or you have to work for a motion. So it would be a wonderful course and hands-on training for the students to work on in the NCA process. It would be your tool to navigate as an articling student. I highly recommend students, even if you are not required to do it, you should consider exploring it in some level. You can explore it through us, join our classes. You can do it on some other platform on your own. And I hope we have provided you lots of free information, the resources, so that they don't get any financial burden on your studies. And you can slowly get comfortable learning what it means to write a plain language legal opinion, what it means to write a plain language document for some other purpose, or doing research as an articling student. And it is different than academic writing. Our NCA exams are an example of academic writing, but when we do the legal writing, that is something in Canada is a very simple, plain language, identifying your audience and addressing your audience concern in the way they understand. So we are, as you see, Canada has been a very, very inclusive country. We try to remove the barriers between understanding the approach, and access to justice is very important aspect for our Canadian legal justice system, where we want people to have comfortable approach towards the law. So this is what my information about legal writing and legal research skills from Canadian Law Tutor is. So please ask me any questions. I open up for the questions so that I can break down the information in more detail and have it more effective webinar for everyone else.
Sure. Thank you, Joel. Appreciate that. Particularly, I think it's appreciated if people didn't realize or didn't know before that there are a fair amount of free resources available to candidates to sort of get used to the idea of practicing to research and things like that. We have a question from Parminder, who was wondering, in one of your slides, you were sort of listing certain things that different resources have, and one of them was case commentaries. So
right.
if you could just go over what is a case commentary? What is that? What's the significance of that, and why would that be useful for an NCA candidate or even a lawyer to read?
Right. So if you, thank you very much, Raminder. That's a very, informative question for me as well. So you have given me another way of looking at something. So I hope I can explain it and to your satisfaction. So when we read a case law, that is one way of looking at things, and that is what the way the case happened. That is the traditional model of writing a judgment. So that is how the judges discuss. That's how a judgment is written, approved by Court of Appeal, Federal Court, or a trial court, or Supreme Court of Canada, and it comes in our hands as such. But case commentary is kind of a summary of the case. And if you go to Supreme Court of Canada's website, they provide their own commentary on the case as well. Why it is important? Because this is a summary in the best legal sense. Why? Because it talks about all the highlighted issues. So when you are doing the research, you probably do not have time to understand the 200 pages, and because you are working on a time constraint level. So when you're working on a time constraint level, reading the commentary, understanding what is the gist of the law, sometimes we get to a judgment which is not in our favor per se. We look at it, we say, oh, this is decided against us, or this, talk about the issue in some different way. But if you read it carefully, especially the commentary in beforehand, you would be able to use even that judgment in your favor. You can convince the judge, even though the issue was decided, but it's not applicable on us for this reason. So commentaries give us a nutshell, tool to apply law quickly. And what is the other way of looking at commentaries? If you go to the Westlaw website, they also have commentaries listed. If you go to big law firms, for example, my favorite one is to understand is Hull and Hull LLP. I love the way, even as a law student sitting in India, wondering what Canadian law was, my best friend was Hull and Hull LLP's website, as well as Supreme Court of Canada. So I would go through those and compare them and understand what the law means. So commentaries are very critical, important to resource for the lawyers as well as law student, because it gives us an insight how to navigate a judgment, even though it is per se not in our favor. Sometimes you're required to do legal research on a specific point, and all you come across is an adverse judgment. You don't find a judgment which has decided that case in your favor. Then who is your best friend? The commentary is your best friend, because that is listing the reasoning of the case, and you can use that reasoning. Since it does not correlate with my facts, my story is something different than that. Even though law has so far has been pointed up to this level, my journey starts from where it ends. So I expect the judge, the law, the court, the judge to interpret my facts as per the law and give me different judgment than what is already decided. So that's where you navigate through the process.
Great, thank you, Gul. And at the end of this, again, we will give details on how to connect with us. Another question from Parminder was, can he or she get a list of the resources that you had mentioned and or links to those resources so they can look at them more closely? So I think if you got in touch with Gul, I can almost guarantee you that she will definitely help you out and provide you with links to all of the resources that she had mentioned that are free. And if you need clarifications on how to use what resources, I'm sure she'll help you there too.
Yes, I have my social media. I will add a little bit thing over here. On my social media, whatever I learn, I share it with everybody. So my social media is not just used for, giving you information about who I am and what I do. It's always my journey of what I'm learning. So whatever I'm reading, I'm learning. You are welcome to join Diplomacy of Knowledge with Canadian Law Tutor platform. So I've been sharing a lot of information on my social media as I learned about the new legal principles, new positions, navigating through the law. In the process, it's a law is a never-ending learning process, and I enjoy sharing my learning with everybody else as well.
Great. You kind of touched on it in your presentation, Gul, but I thought we could just quickly go over. A lot of candidates are wondering, why do I have to do this? I think you touched on a few reasons, how valuable legal writing and research is just in general practice as a lawyer. I know in my history in interviewing people who are decision makers at law firms, which is of particular interest to NCA candidates, they do mention, and legal research and legal writing is different from any other kind of writing, but it can train you in a sense to start to get to know what is acceptable in the Canadian legal marketplace in terms of how you communicate. And that helps also in looking for work, looking for volunteer opportunities, looking for working and articling opportunities in traditional Canadian law firms, for instance. Addressing somebody as dear sir or dear madam is in many jurisdictions polite, honorable to do, but in Canada it's different. And like you said, Gul, focusing on simplicity of language and not using the flowery vocabulary that sometimes you want to do to try to show how proficient you are or how intelligent you are. It kind of has the opposite effect in Canada, from what I understand, speaking to many lawyers. So I gather the NCA kind of thought was getting some feedback from law firms or practitioners, even the examiners in the NCA exams, saying that maybe candidates could use a little bit of, I suppose, training in that area on how to research, how to use the resources when they're in practice, and how to effectively communicate in Canada. Would you say that's right? Is there anything else you would add to that in terms of why this course is necessary?
Yes, no, Anton, I totally agree with you. And I believe when we talk about, diversity and inclusion, and we sometimes unnecessarily offend other people or get offended. And there is no hard feelings. There is no, at times, there is no adversity of any other element, just as race or any other hostility involved, but it's simply the matter of communication in certain times, right? So the communication is a very important tool, and we live in a social world. Especially as a lawyers, we need to communicate every time what exactly we mean in the process. So unless we don't understand what it means to communicate and how to communicate in Canadian legal landscape, we would not be as successful as welcoming, because sometimes we burn the bridges by not being able to approach the things in a more this thing. So I would give you my own example. I never get offended somebody saying, "Hi, Gul, this is what I want. This is what I exactly need to know." So I received so many requests on LinkedIn when people would send me a very complicated, wonderful message. I know they admire my story. I know they want to follow me. I know they want to connect with me to learn. But at the same time, I try to take that opportunity and educate them, like, this is how you communicate on LinkedIn or anything to anybody in Canada, so that that person knows what you want and they are willing to explore the idea of sharing their knowledge or their connections and everyone. For example, in legal world, the Canadian legal justice system put emphasis on how to communicate with the clients. If you look at estate planning, they want the wills to be written in the most simplest form, communicated to the client in the most simplest forms. And as a lawyer, you are responsible to channelize the legal rights, the legal loopholes, everything into that plain language. So whatever you know, that's in you. So anything which is coming through you on that paper is Canadian legal landscape require you to, as an advocate, as a access to justice volunteer, as an officer of the court, and as a lawyer as well. So whatever we have learned, that's in us. That's part of us. That's who we are. I know that, but I should be able to tell you what it is. For example, look at this presentation. We could have talked about, complicated way of telling the legal research and stuff, but we have to understand our audience. We need to know that we are having a person who's sitting in Nigeria. We have a person who's sitting in Hong Kong, who is a wonderfully legally trained lawyer, who is so intelligent, but he still needs to understand why this course is there. We have to ease the anxiety that this is a doable course. So I would highly encourage everybody to explore the idea of this course. So this is not something you should be very, you should not be worried about. It's a doable course, and you can familiarize yourself. And we are also here to answer your queries, so that to make your journey as easy as possible. And I know it's challenging, considering our, individual journeys in personal life and professional life. It's a big um, leap of faith which we take and start this process. But in this process, there is a learning curve, and the learning curve has been now a little bit tilted toward this new course, legal research and writing. I'm also an internationally trained lawyer. I learned these things as slowly as I stumbled many times. I won't say, and that's why I share my knowledge with everybody, so that you can have that edge in your learning, which I, or some other person, some other people from my, I would say, generation, because I'm now 10 years in this profession, and you all guys are all very young, who are coming with so much information, so connected, so informed. So you will be definitely much more successful where I am in my life, and I wish you good luck in that. And please ask me any question about this course, or about me, about anything in law, where I can help you with this.
Great, thank you so much. And on that note, Gul, I know after this session, a recording of this video will be sent to candidates. What would be the best way for candidates to get a hold of you? Is it through your social media? Is there a specific Gmail or email account that you use?
Yes, you can get me through my social media. That's the best way to quickly connect it. It's always connected to my phone. And even my phone number is on my YouTube as well. So I can give you that, 647-530-4220. If you're an internationally trained international student and you don't have access to direct phone line, you can add me on WhatsApp, 647-530-4220. So there would be an annoying automated message coming from my system, but trust me, I look at all those messages and get back to you, everyone, as soon as I can. So that's one way of getting directly in my phone. But my social media is Canadian Law Tutor, which is on LinkedIn. LinkedIn is my professional profile. That's Navdeep Kaur Virk. Navdeep Kaur Virk. My social media on Instagram, Facebook, Twitter is Canadian Law Tutor. You can message me anytime, tweet, text me. I'm there to make your journey as easy as possible.
Great.
Any other questions you have in the process?
There's no other questions from the audience at the moment. I think just as we did, sort of outlining why this course is now mandatory, and some of the benefits that candidates can get, because when you're confronted, I think, by the fact that you have to do something extra, it's annoying, it's a drag, it's more money, it's, a lot of things that are negative. But it sounds like, from your experience, even as an internationally trained lawyer yourself, maybe if you had an opportunity to take this course when you first started, it may have helped you better understand or learn to utilize all of the resources available in terms of legal research, and maybe make you more effective and proficient in legal writing earlier in your career. So that's a positive, I gather, that I think that can happen here. And for candidates who are going to have to take this course, I think in the not too distant future, Gul, you'll probably be offering a prep course in this area in terms of allowing people to take your course and learn and prepare themselves for the actual CPLED session that they'll have to take. Is that right?
Yes, that's correct. So we will be offering a course for everybody who's interested in learning. I would highly encourage everyone to explore this area. And the reason why I believe it is important skill for every lawyer to learn is this is an investment in your career. So don't think as an NCA, imposed burden. It's more like your investment in the process of your successful legal career in Canada. If I had this opportunity to learn, I had to navigate so many things on my own and stumbling and probably annoying some people with my emails and things like that, not knowing how to, learning these things. But slowly we learned, and it's better to have all those systematic knowledge in our hand as soon as we can. It will make you. So many internationally trained lawyers get rejected at the articling applications. They are required to do a writing sample. They have no idea what it means to have a writing samples. They don't know how to approach a law firm for an articling opportunity, and it's a loss for law firms as well. So they also miss out on the talented person who can be so fruitful. But the communication, the language barrier in the legal writing is something which kind of, give, them, I would say that would kind of detour your process when you can have a direct journey towards your success. So let's make your this rough road of Canadian legal landscape a little bit more smoother for you. So this course is a valuable course. It will smoothen your opportunities. It will make you more hireable. It makes you more successful, even if you're doing your solo practice and people believe that they can never go to Bay Street firms. Bay Street firms are not going to come down and teach you how to approach them. We have to navigate how to do that. And trust me, Canada is a very, very inclusive country. Many employers are looking forward to the talent, but we also need to understand that there is a barrier, and we can break that barrier by doing learning it more. And there's legal research and writing skills are offered through Canadian Law Tutor as a prep program for articling students, pre-prep program for CPLED students, and we would be now extending this course to NCA students as well who wants to do this course for their preparation for NCA requirement, or people who want to do just to explore and understand the Canadian legal writing and research skills and to make it more successful. It is an open opportunity for lawyers as well. Many times I get lawyers who need mentorship, they need training. So we customize courses to see what type of law practice they are doing and what they need to do in the process. So we offer customized mentorship training to the lawyers as well.
Sounds good. Alexandra just had a question about the legal blog that you had mentioned, your favorite, and she just missed the name of it. It's Hull and Hull LLP, is that right?
Yes, LLP. Yes, that's so my favorite legal blog.
HULL and HULL.com/blog. If you just look that up, I'm just on it right now. Looks like there's almost 700 bloggers.
It's a very famous law firm, and I think they are doing their job with so much responsibility.
So I hope that helps, Alexandra. In terms of, there was a question from Afalaki. We'll have to wrap this up, I think. But the question is a big question, Gul, and I think an opportunity again to, by all means, reach out to me. By all means, reach out to Gul after the presentation. The question was, what kind of questions can we expect in NCA exams? So that's a big question. It's a question that really, the Toronto School of Management has got pre-recorded lectures for the 5 core subjects. And Gul, I know you teach basically everything. And yeah, so it takes hours to answer that question properly. But I think, I guess, in a very quick way, you kind of had mentioned NCA exams do allow for a little bit more, in some ways, an opportunity for you to argue a point or be a little bit more creative in your writing in terms, but there are very structured ways that you're meant to answer questions. I think rather than answer the question, what to expect, I think it's answering questions in the IRAC form is important. If you've never heard of that phrase, IRAC, then I would suggest you look that up. Definitely get in touch with Gul for more on that. And also, they're like sort of case study type questions where you'll be presented with a scenario, and then there will be sort of multiple questions based on that scenario, asking you to evaluate, what laws are involved here, what would be the potential outcome, and you make arguments for that. So again, we'll kind of leave that one there, given that it's a big one, but by all means reach out. It's a good question. It's a question obviously people should begin to think about if you're getting ready to write your NCA exams, but it's probably too big to answer it all right here. That'll do it, I think, everybody.
Yeah.
Thank you so much for joining. Gul, you've done an amazing job in summarizing some of the free legal resources that are available in terms of how students can prepare to embark upon this legal research and writing course. I think some of the takeaways that I had were how important it is to emphasize plain and simple language when approaching legal writing in particular. I think the idea of a lawyer being very intellectual, very bright, full of charisma, and actually what Canadian legal writing is in some ways eliminating all of that and making it
And it's
very
boring.
plain. Yeah, very plain. And in some ways it does take some intellect in order to get things down from what would be a big paragraph to just 2 sentences. So sort of think
I
of
would
it
add
that way.
something here,
Yeah.
over here. My favorite quote is, which I've shared on my page as well. As Einstein said, you don't understand something until unless you can explain it simply enough. So that's my
Right.
favorite quote. That's what have motivating in my tutoring. So I try to navigate those things with relationship questions and stuff, so the people can relate to it. So when I'm teaching, I try to inculcate that concept of Einstein, where he says if you cannot explain it simply enough, it means you never understood it yourself. So I think this is what Canadian system is expecting it's your lawyer from the lawyers. You're an Einstein, you're a genius, but let's break it down into the simplest way, and basically for our audience.
That's right. Great. And again, yes, to answer just the last question, of course, everybody who's registered for this event had to register an email address, so long as that's a real email address, and I understand why some people don't give real emails, you'll receive a link to this whole webinar in full. And again, if you missed Gul's phone number, if you missed her website, if you missed how to get in touch with me, or if you'd like to get in touch with me, information will be made available through there. So that will do it. Thanks so much, Gul, and thank you to everybody who attended.
Yeah, thank you very much for having me here. Thank you very much, Toronto School of Management, for providing me this opportunity and having me here. It's wonderful to connect on this. You're doing amazing job by providing resources and understanding the challenges of the students and giving them first-hand quality information and education.
Thank you. Thanks very much.